The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jenna Villani. I'm the Executive Director of Alumni Relations here at William Patterson University, and I'm delighted to welcome you to today's webinar, Protecting Your Kids in Online Environments, Part 2, Video Sharing and Online Gaming. Children today are growing up in a born digital world. Parents need to be equipped with the resources and tools to keep their kids safe in digital environments. This webinar builds on Part 1 by focusing on video sharing and online gaming platforms. We'll provide information and resources to understand these environments and ensure kids can safely enjoy these technologies. Before we get started, I'd like to share some details on how this webinar will work today. First, we welcome questions. Feel free to type your questions in the chat question box throughout the webinar, and we will take breaks throughout the presentation to answer them. Second, please note that all microphones will be muted throughout this presentation. Now, I'd like to introduce you to today's speakers, Gary Marks and Neil Grimes. Gary holds BA degrees in History and Political Science, as well as an MA in Public Policy and International Affairs, all from William Patterson University. Gary earned his Master's in Library and Information Science from Rutgers University and is a PhD candidate at Walden University. Gary has worked at the David and Lorraine Cheng Library since first enrolling at the university in 1997. He currently serves as the reference and outreach librarian, forging partnerships around campus and throughout the community to promote the value of resources of the library. Gary also serves as an adjunct faculty member in the Department of Political Science, teaching courses on American government, state government, and law and everyday life. Neil joined the David and Lorraine Cheng Library in October of 2019 and serves as the Education and Curriculum Materials Librarian, coordinating services and resources for the Curriculum Materials Center and working closely with the College of Education. Neil holds a bachelor's degree in history from King's College, a master's in library science from Clarion University, and a master's of education in instructional technology. Prior to coming to the David and Lorraine Cheng Library, Neil spent 13 years working in public education for the Wilkes-Barre Area School District as a classroom teacher and social library media specialist in K-12. In addition to his teaching responsibilities, he worked for 11 years as a part-time research and scholarly service librarian at the University of Scranton. And now I will turn it over to Gary and Neil.
All right, thank you, Jenna. Thanks everybody for joining us today. I know it's not difficult, considering we're talking about protecting your kids in the digital world, and we're all probably homeschooling right now. So thanks for taking the time out of your day to join us. We will try and get as much information out to you as we can, and we'll take questions throughout. So I'm just gonna get started here. Again, please type any questions you have in the chat box. And we're gonna stop about 3 times throughout the presentation to take any of those questions you have. Okay. So again, this is part 2. We did a part 1 of this session in November of 2019, which is available, and I'll show you how to access that webinar and the materials we talked about at that time at the end of this session. So let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about resources, guides, tutorials, websites, tools, tips for protecting your kids in online environments, especially focusing on video sharing platforms and online gaming. Those are 2 topics that came out of our part 1 session that people wanted to learn more about, that we needed to go a little bit more in depth with, so that's what we've done this time around. So those are all things that we're going to provide today. The library provides a lot of the resources and guides to these things, and we put together a nice little one-stop shop resource for you to get all the materials that we've compiled for you. What we will not talk about is providing direct tech support or how-to instructions for how to operate your device, or how to download or add any type of monitoring or child safety type technologies. We'll provide the resources and materials for you to access those things, but we don't provide direct tech support. Hope that's understandable. So we provide resources, we provide information about the law and legal resources, but we don't provide legal advice. So I'll talk about in my area, since I do a lot of law legal research, about the laws that are in place to protect children online, but I won't provide any advice or legal advice, and I can get myself in trouble doing that. And of course, the library, we encourage everyone to be lifelong learners, which is why we put together this presentation and why we put together the resource guide to allow alumni to continue learning throughout their lifetime, and especially with our kids being born in digital worlds and knowing a lot of digital things that we don't know yet. They learn quicker than we do in this area, to be able to keep up with them, stay one step ahead. If you participated in our previous webinars, you know about our alumni resource guide. It's fully free, provided by the Lorraine Cheng Library. It is a comprehensive guide. It's basically creates a one-stop resource shop for our alumni. It includes a lot of research materials, open access journals, publications, the university archives, et cetera, et cetera. All of that is available in this one spot. And then we've also added to that guide by including things like the information safety for parents or online kids, for keeping your kids safe in online environments. So how do you get to this guide? There's a couple ways. You can go to the Alumni Association benefits page, and it's linked right there under the Lorraine Cheng Library Alumni Resources Guide. You can also go directly to the library website, click on Research Guides, and type in alumni in the search box. And that'll take you directly to the research guide that we're going to be showing you today. That's going to have all of the materials and resources that we're going to be talking about. So any questions before we begin, please type them into the chat box. If you have any questions about how to access the guide or what might be available on it, go right ahead. I don't see anything in there just yet, so that's good. And we will go ahead. Let's see if this is, there we are. We're going to go ahead and get started then. So I'm going to leave the PowerPoint and I'm going to go directly to the LibGuide, which looks like this. Okay. So again, you can access it from the different ways that I showed you, and you'll see that it has a lot of resources and materials of a general nature. But what we're going to be concentrating on today is the site we added here, the icon for Internet Safety for Parents. Okay, and this is a kind of a progressive site, so we constantly update and add new material to it. And as we do, you'll see things that get added like new. So usually about every 6 months, something that's new that's been added, we'll identify it as new being added to the guide. If I have time at the end of the session today, we'll go back and we'll look at some of these things. So this was from part one. This is the part one alumni webinar here, where we talked about all the different tools for kind of managing devices and general online safety. And so a lot of that is available here, so feel free to check those things out. Today we're going to be concentrating, I'm going to go into talking about video sharing platforms. And okay, so for a video sharing platform, let's talk about the definition first. That's an online video platform known as an OVP. So this is basically any type of digital technology tool that provides users an ability to create their own video recorded content and share it through a chosen platform. And there are quite a few of these. The biggest being YouTube. So the first thing I want to show everybody before we get into looking at the specific platforms is this is the number of people using social media platforms. And this is a live feed, so it's constantly updated with data, and you can actually pull this out and you can see the sources of information. And you can actually, just click on each one of these and you can see the growth of some of these different platforms. So these are social media. They're not necessarily just video sharing, although almost every one of these has video sharing capabilities. So Facebook is still our big one. Many of us probably remember that one as being the first. It's kind of odd if you look at here, if you know anything about the history of Facebook, it doesn't show up on the board here until 2008, even though it started in 2004. That's because it didn't reach the number of users that some of these other platforms did at the time. So this is the number of users for some of these platforms. One of the ones that's very popular today that we're going to talk about is TikTok, which is a extreme anomaly. Because if you look at TikTok here, you'll see that is an extreme where the growth started. TikTok's only a couple years old, and it's already reached 500 million users. So we're going to talk about that and the influence of TikTok and how we can as these things get started so quickly, it's hard to keep up with how to stay safe and what the dangers are available. So this is just something for everybody to check out if they want. They can see the different number of users that are available, and that will help us lead into what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm going to start with YouTube. In case you didn't know, YouTube is owned by Google. It is the massive giant of the world of video platform sharing, as you can see here. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is the YouTube policies and child safety guidelines. Now, at our last webinar in November, we talked about this briefly because it was actually going on. But in September, October of 2019, YouTube was hit with a $170 million fine for violating the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, which is linked up here on our left, so you can see exactly what that talks about. And that basically is a law to protect children under 13 years of age in online environments. And what the issue was with YouTube is they were providing access to advertisers for individual information for kids who were under 13, which was not allowed. So basically there was a big settlement with the FTC and they had to develop new guidelines. And we didn't talk about that much in November because none of those guidelines had actually come into place yet. Most of them all kicked off for YouTube in January of 2020. So all of these have been updated to the new guidelines that YouTube has. I actually also included the YouTube and FTC settlement here, so you can actually read what the details were and what the YouTube issue was, even though they claimed no, that's the deal with the settlement. Basically, oh, we weren't guilty, we'll just agree to pay a fine and do these type of things to make changes. So the first thing I'm going to look at is our YouTube policies and child safety guidelines. So we're going to take a look here, and hopefully everybody can see this. So hopefully everybody's still seeing the same screen I am. So we have the YouTube policies here. This is just a way for you to dive into some of this stuff on what is available, what the actual community guidelines for YouTube are. Nobody ever reads the terms and conditions of all of these things. They're there. There's some definitely good ways to get into this stuff, especially for child safety on YouTube. You can go in and see exactly what YouTube has available. YouTube Creator Academy provides a nice place for one of the biggest issues that YouTube has was with creators who generate content specifically for children, which is YouTube is fantastic. I mean, there's tons of education materials out there. I'm sure everybody at home right now with their kids is watching some type of YouTube content that their teachers have shared with them. And there's some actual wonderful tools that actually make YouTube safer in doing that for educational materials. All right, so in the general Google Safe Search Kids, if everybody's familiar with Google Safe Search, what that does is it allows you to implement the kind of the safe search guidelines you would have if a child was doing Google searches. This is pretty much, I'm assuming here that a lot of people know about how to do a Google Safe Search or how to set it in a browser. If not, we can show you. But YouTube also has its own mechanism for doing this so that you can actually provide safe search results for when your kids are doing YouTube searches directly. So if a kid goes to YouTube and they do a direct search, what you can do is you can set a not a parental control, you can set restricted mode. And the instructions for doing that are provided right here. It's pretty easy to do. If I have YouTube up, I can show you real quick. So this is my work YouTube. I did some general searching here, Office of the Governor. But in the top right-hand side, underneath your username icon on the left-hand side, you'll see an option with a drop-down, and you'll see restricted mode off. So this is an easy way you can toggle this on and off for your kids if they have YouTube accounts. And there's also ways that if you have a Google account for a child under 13, that they can't turn it back on. Or they can't turn it back off, I'm sorry. So once you set a restricted mode, it will actually do safe search limits, and it'll allow you to choose what limits you want to set, what type of restriction, what type of content you don't want to be showing up in YouTube videos for your kids. So the flags can be set. It's pretty easy, and it's one of those ways that you can kind of just passively set guidelines to keep kids safe and not viewing the content you don't want them to see. There's more active ways of monitoring and more direct YouTube parental controls. Those are all available here, but that's one of the easiest ways. One of the other tips that I could share with YouTube is encouraging kids to subscribe to channels that you feel are safe and that provides the content that the kids like. The reason for doing so is it provides constant updates of material that have been updated to that specific YouTube channel. And it also avoids kids doing more general searching for content that you don't know about. And there's also other ways as well that you can use, like SafeTubeNet, which is used by a lot of teachers, where it eliminates a lot of those recommended videos you see in the side. So once you do a search and you view a YouTube video, in the right-hand menu item, a lot of you, I'm sure you're aware of this, you'll see the recommended videos on the right-hand side. Now, SafeYouTube.net allows you to avoid doing that. It allows you to choose a particular YouTube video or content, generate a link, and it cuts out all the recommended videos on the right-hand side. It cuts out all the comments, and it just provides the direct content. This is what a lot of teachers provide. This is a great tool for teachers to provide for students that want to send them just the one content to view. So parents can use that as well. It's not eliminating that. Okay, and then we've also provided some research articles. We want to make sure people are educated about this. So this article here talks about the types of content that's shared by youth. So YouTube is one of those things that all the kids want to be YouTube creators. They think there's millions of dollars in being YouTube creators. There is not. There's actually not a lot of money in being a YouTube creator, especially for content for kids under 13, as a result of the FTC settlement, because personalized advertising can no longer be directed at content that's geared towards children. You know, any creator of YouTube content now has to identify whether the content is intended for kids under 13 or not as they're creating it. Failure to do so can result in penalties and everything else. And the other big thing you'll notice is any YouTube videos you see that where comments are available is not a video that's been identified as for children under the age of 13. That was part of the FTC settlement. So it's one of the easiest ways for parents to take a look. If your kids are viewing YouTube content and you see that the comment fields are enabled, that means that content is not specifically designated for safe for under 13. Not saying it's bad or anything like that, just saying that the creators did not identify it as specifically safe for under 13. Okay. TikTok. I'm sure everybody's heard of TikTok now. It's quite a phenomenon. In such a short amount of time, TikTok has grown exponentially, increasing to having over 500 million users in 2018. It's currently having 800 million users. So if you see this little line here that started, middle of 2016, 2017, as now, if we went up to 2020, it's up around here right now. Right below WeChat for 800 million users as of 2020, which is extremely, phenomenal. It's owned by ByteDance, which is a Chinese company based in Shanghai, and is formerly a platform called Musical.ly, which the ByteDance purchased and then renamed and kind of revised to make it called TikTok. So as a TikTok Parent Support Center, TikTok has been a subject of a lot of news stories lately. There's a current affair video we put on here that is a couple minutes long. You can check it out. That talks about the warnings of TikTok. There's research articles here about child awareness for TikTok. Privacy protection research article. This one here, TikTok was also fined by the FTC in 2019 for violating COPPA because their user policy had violated child rights and child protections. So there's a lot of concerns with TikTok, and especially this article here talks about TikTok motivation, which is quite scary of what kids are looking for when they're trying to gain more users or more followers type things, and they want videos that go viral. There was an issue not too long ago with TikTok where there was this craze called the skull crasher, where kids were actually like tricking other kids to jump in the air and then kicking their feet out from under them, and kids were ending up in the hospital with concussions. And this is all, purpose to try and garner more views for their videos. So they have, the Internet Matters here is a wonderful company, organization. They provide a TikTok safety guide, and this guide here is current. Like I said, I update this stuff regularly, so this is less than a month old, or actually a little over a month, I should say, when I put it on here. So this allows you to understand the details, and there's also very short instructional tutorial videos. I don't like putting stuff on here that you got to sit and watch an hour like this webinar to find out how to do all this stuff. So there's a full popular parent guide. You can download the guide directly, but this gives you a nice little background. TikTok, like many of these other apps, is 13 minimum age, but there is no way to verify age. So kids can sign up for TikTok apps and just say they're 13. There's no verifications. And then there's also a way you can view TikTok without actually creating an account. So there's a lot of things on here. Common Sense Media is another one, and it also talks about what parents should be concerned about. One of the biggest things is, same thing with Facebook years ago. Default all accounts are public. So whatever you create on there can be found by anybody unless you know to change your default settings as soon as you create an account to share videos. Because then that's when you start ending up with the issues of people following videos of children for unwanted purposes. So this is a great website, Internet Matters. They do a wonderful job. They provide a lot of video tutorials, and I highly recommend it for checking out for TikTok safety. Snapchat's the last one I'm really going to go into. Snapchat is very popular as well, as we could see from the collection here. They're been dipping down a little bit, but again, there's ways you can use Snapchat parental controls, which is fantastic. This is from Screen Time Labs, introduction videos, tutorials, step-by-step instructions, which is fantastic. And it's very easy to follow for how to set these up for your kids if they're into Snapchatting. Snapchat's very popular. The filters with Snapchat is very popular with kids. So the steps on how to create safe settings are all right here available for the kids for using Snapchat. Okay, and where am I at on time-wise? Okay, and I added a couple others here. We're going to be adding more as we go along, because there's also almost every application, social media application now, provides some type of video sharing capability. Instagram was originally just for taking pictures and posting them online, but now there is IGTV. There's also ways to do Instagram video sharing. So there is, we've included the Instagram parent guide here, teen safety guide for Instagram parents. This is a very good one because it actually includes a lot of terminology. And you notice on the home page of this entire internet safety guide, I provide a guide on terminology and a glossary of terms. And there's also one on commonly used text language for kids. So, as an educator, I often see kids writing in text language as they write papers. So it's very important to understand those things. And also WhatsApp. WhatsApp is one that often goes under the radar a lot. It's owned by Facebook, same as Instagram. Facebook is the monster in the room. And I don't mean that as in a bad way, but it just means like they're the big owner of everything. So there's a WhatsApp parent guide, and then there's this great article here that just came out a couple of days ago, and I wanted to put it on here. So this is something that just lays out some of the things that parents need to know about WhatsApp, because it definitely does fly under the radar. Not a lot of people have heard of it, but what WhatsApp does is it allows for transmitting video and messaging content without using cellular data, and it's kind of you can use it anywhere over Wi-Fi connection, and it's a little bit more private, and there's a little bit less of a parental control setup yet. But as you can see, WhatsApp again is grown exponentially, and you're talking they're going to be close to 1.5 billion users right now, which is a lot. And we're talking worldwide, not just the U.S. So a lot of these also, WhatsApp, I think that a third of their client users are in India. And then same thing with TikTok. They have 800 million users, but I think more than a third of those are in China because it's a Chinese-based company. So I think that's what I'm going to stop with right now for my time frame for the video platforms. There's a couple of wonderful articles up here that you can check out, especially regarding the mental health of youth in using these social media platforms and video platforms, cyberbullying, image self-awareness type issues, addiction and use of screen time. So this article here is fantastic, and it's freely available. You can download it and check it out at your leisure. But if there are any questions now regarding some of the video platforms we talked about, some of the resources that are available here, again, we put all this stuff on there so that parents can kind of make their own decisions, check out what's available to them, kind of have a better understanding of what's available, what their kids are into. And there's a lot of things on here for how to have conversations with kids, which we'll touch upon at the end of the session. So I don't see any questions going right now. I'll check the chat box. All right, so I don't see anything there. So I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Neil if I can. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Stop sharing. And Neil, are you with me still?
I'm here.
All right, good. So Neil, you can go ahead and take over and start sharing your screen.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to talk to everyone today about the two main aspects of digital citizenship and online gaming and gaming consoles. So I'm going to walk you through what those two terms mean, and I'm going to give you some guidelines to know in terms of video games and kids. So starting with digital citizenship, we have a few links that we provided. A great website's called Common Sense Media for Parents. And let me just start with a definition of what digital citizenship is. Digital citizenship is a concept which helps teachers, technology leaders, and parents to understand what students, children, technology users should know to use technology appropriately. Digital citizenship is more than just a teaching tool. It is a way to prepare students and technology users for a society full of technology. Digital citizenship is the continuously developing norms of appropriate, responsible, and empowered technology use. So essentially, when we're talking to our kids about digital citizenship, we're showing them how to effectively use technology in an appropriate way. So let me get into probably one of the more important areas that everyone probably wants to know about, which is video games and kids. Video games are wildly popular and well-established media that have been growing and changing for decades. And if you have kids, they probably do like them. If you don't play video games yourself, you might be concerned over what exactly these things are all about. If you're worried about what your children see and hear when they play on their PC, tablet, smartphone, or console, I can tell you everything that you need to know. So basically, a lot of the information that I pulled for my presentation today came from the very first link under online gaming and gaming consoles, what every parent needs to know about video games. So video games aren't just for kids. They're a fully developed category of media with titles that appeal to a wide variety of audiences across different ages and interest groups. Children aren't even the primary audience for most video games. According to the Entertainment Software Association, 72% of regular video game players are over age 18, and the average gamer is 35 years old. Remember, the people who grew up on the Atari 2600 and Nintendo Entertainment System are in their 30s now. Know what games kids are playing. Because games are varied as movies and TV shows, you should keep an eye on the games your kids play just as you would what they watch. Take action and engage with your kids about video games. Find out what games they like. Ask what games they're playing. If you have a hard time remembering the names of the games, write them down. You don't need to learn everything about these games, but you do need to be able to identify these games so that you can make educated decisions. When you know what they're playing and what genres they're interested in, you could start checking out the ratings of these various different games. Reading the ratings is an important aspect of understanding video games and if they're appropriate for your children or not. Just as movies and TV shows have rating systems, video games have a similar rating system. The rating system organization for video games is called the Entertainment Software and Ratings Board, or ESRB. And there is a very nice link directly to their website, as well as an ESRB family guide that is particularly helpful in determining whether specific video games would be appropriate for children of various ages. The Entertainment Software Ratings Board, an extension of the ESA, has been formally rating the content of video games since the year 1994. Any video game you buy in a store in the United States will have a black and white rectangle somewhere on the box, usually on the back of the box, that says ESRB on the bottom, with a larger letter or letters in the middle. The letters in the middle are the game's ESRB rating. There are 6 primary ESRB ratings. EC would be for early childhood. E would mean the game is rated for everyone. E10 would be for everyone 10 years of age and up. T would indicate the games are for teenagers. M would be for adults or mature audiences, people of the age of 18 years and older. AO is for adults only. The rating on each game will explain what it is with a basic descriptor and, if needed, some simple warnings about the types of potentially objectionable content you may find. ESRB ratings aren't just for retail games that you buy in the store. The ESRB rates digitally distributed games as well. If your kids want to download a game to their Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, or PC, there will be ESRB ratings that you could check for each game before you download them. The same applies to most smartphones and tablet games. So checking the ESRB rating of any game that your child would like to play is very important before actually purchasing the game or letting your child play the game. If you can't find the ESRB rating of a game, you could search for it on the ESRB's online database. You would have to enter the name of the game, and then you'll get a list of possible titles that are sorted by the many gaming platforms. There's even an ESRB ratings database app that you could download directly to your phone. What do the ratings mean? Each ESRB entry will have some detail about the content of the rated game, but you can learn a lot just by checking the letter on the rating. They're sorted into different broad age groups, as I said before. E is for everyone. E10 is for everyone the age of 10 and up. T is for teen. M is for mature. And AO is for adults only. Beware of online gaming. A lot of children, especially today, in addition to just playing the video game, want to be involved in playing online versus other gamers. So beware of online gaming. Video games themselves are reliably safe if you know what's in them. When those games go online, however, it becomes a lot more difficult to regulate. Any game with voice chat might expose your kids to other players' use of objectionable and offensive language. Worse yet, any game that allows modifications to be used or supports any kind of visual communication might contain explicit imagery. So it's very important to be aware of online gaming. Consider parental controls. You could limit what games your kids can play, even when you're not around. Every major gaming platform, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, all have settings that will give you greater control over different aspects of the game. And I do have each of the major gaming platforms listed on this LibGuide, and you could click directly on that link and it will take you to that platform's page, and it will give you instructions as to how to put limiting parameters on what you want your kids to be able to play, access within specific games. So they provide a lot of online support for that as well. I believe there's online chat for each of the major gaming platforms. So if you have questions as to how to go about putting in controls, parental controls for different games or on a gaming platform, those would be the links that you would want to click on. They're in the list there. The Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One all have settings that give you greater control over what games your kids consume, with guides on how to use them. The ESRB has a helpful page with guides to using parental controls of different game systems. Even Steam, which is a gaming platform that stands for science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, so they're more educationally themed games. Even the Steam platform has parental controls for PC games, though you would need some knowledge of computers to implement them. The most important aspect about video games and kids is talking to your kids about the games they play and trusting them, giving them a sense of trust in terms of how they play the games. Parental controls can be very effective, but your children have an advantage over you and over me on these platforms. Kids born after the turn of the millennium grew up with smartphones and tablets and broadband and video game systems with mature libraries. They started learning about the very technical side of these things at a much younger age than you or I did. And if they're determined and curious enough, any parental control could potentially be broken. Education and communication are your greatest tools in protecting your children from any content on video games or on any of the video sharing platforms that Gary mentioned that you don't want them to be exposed to. So take a close look at some of the links that I provided under the section of online gaming and gaming consoles. And I have a parent's guide to Fortnite, one of the more popular gaming platforms, online gaming platforms for kids today, as well as Roblox, a parent's guide to Roblox. So those are specific guides to specific games and online gaming platforms, more of the popular ones. And also, as I said, each of the major gaming platforms, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, PS4, and Steam, each have their own websites where you can go to and you could look at parental control, family management options for that gaming system and for the specific games that your son or daughter decides that they would like to play. I think it's important to look more closely at each of these platforms depending on what your kids are playing, and then see what kind of control options are available. So I have the links directly provided on this page. And at this time, I would like to open up to the discussion to the audience, to all of the William Patterson alumni, to see if you have any questions for Gary or I concerning social media, online gaming, video platforms, anything like that. I'm going to turn over the presentation now to Gary, and he will kind of direct the questions either to me or he'll be able to answer them himself. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. I'm looking at the chat. I don't see anything coming through as of yet. So that's okay. So then that gives us a chance to get back to some of the things that I mentioned before, and Neil touched upon a little bit. On our main page, I've provided some additional resources and materials, but as Neil mentioned, one of the easiest way to start make sure that kids are protected online is through conversation. So there's a new article here that I put on that's basically a discussion with 17 of the top cybersecurity experts in the U.S. And each one provides different advice and tips and guidance on how to make sure that their kids are safe in online environments. And the number one thing that came up across the board was communication, and education. So to have the discussion with kids regarding all of these things. Awareness is the biggest thing. And kids start to use these platforms and they start to age. I have 3 kids of all different ages, and they're all at different stages of their social media and video and online gaming consumption. So there's different levels and needs at each one of those areas, and each one is facing different peer pressures, different experiences for what they're using these tools for, and their main desires of what they want for those, and what their motivation is for using those platforms. So these articles here, basically approaching internet safety with children, are crucial. So this guide provided by the FTC is written aimed at kids who are 8 to 12 years old, who are really in that crucial stage of starting to use some of those social media type things, or even text messaging. I know that it depends on parents on how old kids are when they first get their smartphone device, and what kind of usage they can have with those things. But that 8 to 12-year-old age group is what's been identified across the board as the most crucial stage for starting to teach kids about the dangers and making them aware, and transitioning from what I call the control to monitoring to guidance. Early on, you may be inclined to have more of a control, where you want to actually set limits on what can be accessed, when you can turn things on and off, how much you can actually control what your child consumes and sees. And then you can move into the monitoring type stage, where you can move into different type things of like providing the guidance and just monitoring to ensure that what they're doing aligns with what you feel is safe for them. And then finally to guidance, where your children are making the smart decisions for their own, in providing, in using the education and the communication that's been taking place, throughout the years they've been progressing in this area. One of the great tools to learn this is there's a cyber safety quiz, and there are different age categories that are available here. So you can actually give this to your kids to find out how much they understand. You can also take it yourself. It's kind of funny. You can take a cyber safety quiz, or give your kids a cyber safety quiz to see exactly where they're at, what they understand about these platforms, what the dangers are, what they might not be, and it gives you a good benchmark of what kind of conversations you need to have, and that can also help in deciding what kind of content control or monitoring you need to see. Okay, actually, I see a question here. I see a few teachers' guides. Are there some specific sharing points for teachers to help parents, especially as the end of the year approaches? Sure, and I think some of the most ones that I would talk about here, because I know I have 3 kids who are at home and they're kind of homeschooling, and my wife is an educator as well. Is the kids are on devices all day long, and it's kind of tough to monitor what they're doing at all times, especially when you're outnumbered as I am. I have 3 kids. So the conversation starters here are fantastic to send to parents. And families can make pledges. There's guidance here on how to talk to kids and how to families can make pledges themselves. We've tried to implement one in my house where we're not allowed to use the smartphones at the table. And I must admit, I'm probably one of the biggest culprits in breaking that rule, just because my job involves dealing with social media on a constant basis, because I handle social media content and kind of managing those type of things for the library, for the institution's library, which almost requires a 24-hour job. So a lot of times I'm checking in on things at like dinner time, and I'm constantly getting odd looks from my kids. But these things here in the approaching internet safety with children are fantastic to send to parents. And then also the children internet safety tabs here. These are guides that are fantastic to send to parents. And the cyber safety quiz is a good fun, and there's fun activities here as well. So it's not just like, oh, take a quiz. There's actually kind of like learning material in this cyber activities and quiz for middle schoolers. Again, that's that crucial age group we're talking about, that this is the time frame when they actually learn the nuances of online platforms and online safety and what's available out there, to make sure that as they progress in maturity levels and once they get to the teen years, they have a better understanding of those things. So I know in the first webinar I talked about what I've done with my own kids, and my oldest right now, she's aware enough that when we still have a control where when she wants to download new applications and try new things out on her device, she basically requests for my approval. I do this for 2 reasons. 1, because I don't want her to have access to things that I don't want. 2, I don't want her to be able to spend my money and buy applications that cost money. So she can request things that cost money, but they just have to be approved by me. And then 3 is we had a conversation so that when she requests these types of applications, she actually sends it to me. It automates from her device that she can send me a request, and I just get a pop-up that says, Matt, I would like to download this. But she sends it with kind of almost, it's like she's a salesman. So I've taught her to look at the reviews, the number of stars that an application gets, the purposes. So she basically tries to sell me on it to make sure that she can get it, which is fantastic, an educational tool. 1, because I want her to be knowledgeable about the stuff, and 2, she knows she's learning to make the decisions for herself, to review those things on her own, which I couldn't ask for anything else. That's what you want. So. But for teachers, those are the things that I would highly recommend. I knew Neil was in education for so many years, so he may have some tips as well. I'll turn it over to him if he has anything to add.
Sure, Gary. I'll just talk a little bit about digital citizenship. So in the classroom, in the K-12 setting, a lot of teachers are incorporating, thanks, Gary. A lot of teachers are incorporating a lot of lessons directly from Common Sense Media. So I put a link there. It says Common Sense Media Digital Citizen Curriculum K-12 Lessons. So a lot of parents that are doing some online teaching with their kids, during the current pandemic, I would recommend you check out some of those lessons, and you have a good discussion with your children about what it means to be a digital citizen, what it means to be a critical thinker, to question the media they're consuming on the internet. There was a big controversy a couple of years ago about fake news and social media. So I would say, have this active discussion with them about what they're reading, what videos they're viewing, what they're looking at online, so that you could be aware of what kind of media they're consuming, and at the same time, you kind of have a better grasp of what's out there for kids on the internet, on social media, in video games and gaming systems and platforms. So I think that's important. Look at Common Sense Media, take a good look at that, and take a good look at Inside the 21st Century Classroom. A lot of students today are born digital. So when they come into the classroom setting, they already have a lot of skills to be able to complete project-based learning assignments and interact with websites, different activities online, web quests, things like that. So I would recommend, take a good look at some of those K-12 lessons. They're lessons that are developed for students at the various age levels, and explore some of those different options. That was a great question, and thanks for turning it over to me for a little bit, Gary. I appreciate that.
No problem. Yeah, and there's also this entire page here, which is designed for educators, but parents as well. That we have a lot of information on like just internet knowledge in general, identifying fake news and seeing being able to identify what's real, what's not, what's been made up. And a lot of these are designed for kids. And some of these are ed tools and things like that, and a lot of funny acronyms, the FART, for students to remember steps for website evaluation. Again, these crucial middle school ages. And I can't imagine being an educator in a classroom and telling kids that we're going to learn the FART method today. But whatever will get them interested, and actually learning about the topic is fantastic. So again, this is all freely available. We will update it constantly, as well as all of the other educational resources we provide on here, to link out for alumni that need them. We're happy to add things if the alumni are looking for materials that they can't find on here. Please reach out to us. My contact information is right here on the main page of this guide. Neil's contact information is also on the guide as well. So if you have questions there, you can actually just click right there and email us. Feel free to submit any, whether it's related to internet safety, whether it's related to research, any type of resources you're interested in trying to gather about and think the library can help with, then please just let us know. That's why we're here to help our alumni contingency as an alum myself.
Great. Well, if anyone else has any other questions, again, we have a couple more minutes here. Feel free to type them into that questions box, and we'll give it another minute or so. But in the meantime, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Gary and Neil for their time and for sharing their expertise with us today. We truly appreciate it. And not seeing any further questions here. So at this time, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. So once again, thank you all for joining us today. Have a great afternoon and enjoy the day. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us. I appreciate it.